The feeling of being an outsider is an all too familiar one for most human beings. The experience of a Jewish person being made to feel an outsider in Jewish spaces is eloquently investigated in the Eli Talk from Rabbi Shais Rishon, who goes by the moniker MaNishtana's.
This is Jews Talk Racial Justice with April and Tracy,
a weekly show hosted by April Baskin and Tracy Guy Decker.
In a complex world, change takes courage.
Wholehearted relationships can keep us accountable.
Watched MaNishtana's video last night. So good.
Is Eli Talk? That one? It is amazing.
It's their top Eli Talk.
Is it? I'm not surprised. It's so good. He's so funny and so charming, and also like he brings Torah and he brings like sort of contemporary relevance. Yeah, it's really
so
good.
Many things, and like he really crafted it. I thought it was excellent the first time I heard it, but it's been a few years, and just the journey he takes around the texts and the stories and the imagery. I mean, it's masterful.
And the framing at the party. It's really
also
good.
The gates of the community, and how he so eloquently and understandably talks about and unpacks and articulates dynamics stemming from internalized oppression around
and intergenerational trauma.
Around anti-Semitism.
Actually recommended MaNishtana's Eli Talk recently to a group of white Jews. We were gathered as white Jews explicitly, and more than one person was expressing feelings of kind of being shut out or excluded from different, I don't know if they used the word clique, but that was the word that came in my head, from within their own Jewish communities, and sort of just not feeling a full sense of belonging within Jewish communities to which they felt they ought to belong. And
this is a huge thing throughout the Jewish community. Oh yeah.
So I referenced MaNishtana's Eli Talk because I think when he talks about sort of the gatekeeping and the city of refuge,
yes,
that it really resonated for what I think it was all female identified people who were saying this, but I'm sure it is not exclusive to female identified people. But they were talking about just feeling a sense of not belonging and feeling shut out. And so I was thinking about that kind of gatekeeping that we sometimes do.
It happens a lot in our community.
It does. It's really interesting to me, actually. When I was so some listeners know, in a previous employment, I was at a Jewish museum. And when I was at the museum and thinking about historically sort of the Jewish community in America, we talked a lot about the shifting between insider and outsider status of the Jewish community within America, writ large, within American society writ large. But I think that there are microcosms of that even within Jewish communities, American Jewish communities. In Baltimore, there was this classic, which is not unique to Baltimore, but we had a classic sort of German Russian divide within, like the German Jews who came over earlier and had more money, right, and then the Russian Jews coming over later with a lot less affluence. And there was this snobbery from the German Jews about the Russian and Polish Jews. And like, there was just these, like there were two sets of Jewish country clubs because the German Jews didn't want to let the Russian Jews into their country clubs. And there were two sets of federations. In fact, here in Baltimore, it was like a big deal when they got together, then decided to create just one federation with German and Russian Jews. So anyway, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because within our Jewish communities, there's a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah,
some of it
race notwithstanding, like it permeates.
Yeah. And some of it is around observance, right? Like if I keep a standard of kashrut and you don't keep it, therefore I don't want to eat with you, then that sort of creates a barrier. But I think is overly simplistic to kind of use that as the reason. I think it is a reason.
I think to me, it's not even that. Like, I think that's a dynamic that plays out, but I think it goes so much deeper than that to Shais's point around just people feeling that I think is in part a not universal, but it shows up as a collective trauma pattern around questioning whether or not someone belongs for any number of reasons, right? It's like that fundamental, as Shais discusses, like that fundamental Rabbi Rishon, as
Rabbi Shais Rishon, who also goes by MaNishtana, because we called him MaNishtana earlier.
Rishon,
right?
Yeah, who goes by MaNishtana, right? That he speaks to. What was I going to say? That like it's about this. Also, I think there's potentially at times a dynamic around internalized self-hatred of why would you want to be us, and it's just a limiting view of who we are as a people, on not even just about race, but it's just extra worse because at times it shows up disproportionately around that, and it also is intertwined with other racist dynamics that further compound it.
I think even in the Eli Talk, Rabbi Rishon sort of addresses that, when he says like,
yeah,
why would I pretend to be Jewish? Like as a black man, I'm just gonna put black on top of my black. Like, I mean, that's not a verbatim quote, but that's the general idea that, why would you choose this identity that is targeted is some of the subtext of that. That's real. It's real.
But it's more than that. It's also, why would you choose this identity that I haven't even as I'm involved in Jewish life, fully embraced in some sort of way or another, possibly.
Yeah, maybe. Like Groucho Marx is famous. I think it's him famously said, like, I would never want to be a part of any club that would have me as a member.
Exactly. And I guess it's this whole thing, but I can't remember if I've talked about it on this podcast or not, but I used to talk about this with different congregations, and this was kind of a deep thing to say, but I really kept seeing it showing up in the work, that I think at times for our community, part of the challenge we have in loving your neighbor as ourselves is that it's dependent upon how much we love ourselves.
Right. And we don't love ourselves.
Yeah. In the context of capitalism, in the context of a lot of different things, in the context of internalized oppression over millennia of anti-Semitism, that like with other groups, and for us in this regard, it might even arguably be more intense because of the length of time, the extended hundreds and thousands of years of repeated rejection in different contexts, that has its impact. And in some weird ways, I think that there's also just like the essence of that in this gatekeeping of the internalized of this is how we've been treated. And it's been so internalized and not healed that we are now replicating this harm with other people, that it has become the norm. And I think people often are not most of the time, but that doesn't mean that they still don't need to be held accountable, and hopefully shift that over time or be called in, as we like to say, as opposed to called out. Where I was going to go, but where I'm going right now is, what would it feel like for us to get the healing we need, and for us to start to just enjoy and savor the diversity of our religion and the diversity of our communities, of all the folks who are Jewish adjacent, who may not be Jewish, but who are in our midst. And it's on a certain level, it does in fact matter in certain ways, but in most ways, in a lot of ways, it's beside the point. And can we not just be in community together and let those of us who occupy identities that may be different than yours bring it up when we want to bring it up, or not bring it up at all if we don't want to bring it up, and do that on our terms, on our own terms. I love the part where Rabbi Rishon talks about, I'd forgotten it. There's just so many elements of it. As someone who's given so many speeches, I'm just like, this is It's so well done. I haven't seen it. You should check it out. And also to give those a sneak peek who haven't yet participated in our Awareness Accelerator program, this is one of the many juicy, phenomenal resources that are in the program. And MaNishtana's is just brilliant in his nuanced ability to raise tough issues and bring people along and not sugarcoat it. And yet through the asking of questions, through humor, like it's just a masterful talk. Someone who does, who's given a lot of speeches, it's just really quite masterful. And, his point about that I'd forgotten that he talked about the fact that originally we were 12 tribes, and there is evidence, in fact, that there were 12 tribes. And how just, to me, it's like another element. It's another thing that I don't focus on as much. I think I used to a few years ago a little bit, but I lost touch with that talking point of we're a global people, that we started in North Africa and West Asia, and we were 12 distinct tribes.
Yeah.
And now with globalization, like, are we going to be like, it's just, I know how people are conditioned, and that is significant. But if you start to practice thinking critically and noticing these things and thinking about it, it goes from feeling like a stretch to just really obvious, which is a helpful place to be in the work, not from a place of self-righteousness, but from a place of ease in navigating these issues. Like, right, the more I think about this, the more this makes great, good sense. Thanks for tuning in. Our show's theme music was composed by Elliot Hammer. You can find this track and other beats on Instagram at Elliot Hammer. If this episode resonated with you, please share it and subscribe. To join the conversation, visit JewsTalkRacialJustice.com, where you can send us a question or suggestion, access our show notes, and learn more about our team. Take care until next time, and stay humble and keep going.